Sometimes relationships don't break because someone is bad, or because someone deliberately wants to cause harm. More often, they break for quieter reasons. Reasons hidden beneath the surface. Reasons so subtle that we only understand them when everything is already beginning to fall apart. There are moments in all of our lives when someone close to us trembles on the inside. Their voice softens, their energy dims, their eyes lose a bit of their light. And although they may try to hide it, we can feel their strength slipping. Most of the time, all they truly need is a place to lean for a little while. Not forever, not dramatically, just enough to breathe again. But instead of moving closer, we often step back. Not because we don't care, but because their pain awakens our own. It stirs something unfinished within us, a discomfort, a memory, a fear that we were not prepared to face. And so we distance ourselves. We say things like, "Maybe later," "I'm too tired right now," or "You're asking too much." Or worse, we remain physically present, but emotionally vanish. Near a small village beside old telegraph wires, two pine trees had grown side by side for many years. Travelers saw them as companions, steady, quiet, loyal to the passing seasons. But one cold autumn, as the wind sharpened and pushed through their needles, one pine began to weaken. Its roots loosened, its foundation trembled. It could no longer stand firm. It leaned toward its companion and whispered, "Forgive me. My roots have slipped from the soil. If you can hold me for just a few days, I may regain my strength." But the other pine failed to hear the fear in its voice. It did not see how fragile its companion had become. Instead, it replied with coldness, "Your problem is not my problem. Move away. I cannot bear your weight." And with a harsh shake, it pushed the weakened pine aside. The fallen tree crashed into the telegraph wires, breaking the connection of the entire region. But the truth, the quiet, hidden truth, waited beneath the soil. When the repair crew dug around the base of the trees, they discovered something unexpected, profound, and painfully symbolic. The roots of the two pines were tightly intertwined, so intertwined that removing one without cutting the other was impossible. The pine that refused to bend had never been standing alone, and so it too was cut down. By the next morning, nothing remained of the two companions but an empty field and a silence that made travelers pause and think. This story is not about trees. It is about us. It is about the emotional ecosystems we live inside. Ecosystems as real as soil and roots, even though we pretend they are invisible. No relationship grows only in the visible world. The real connection happens underground, in memories shared, in wounds witnessed, in the ways two lives slowly intertwine beneath the surface of daily events. Most of us underestimate how deeply connected we become to the people we spend our lives beside. We imagine ourselves as separate, independent, self-contained. But the moment someone close to us suffers, we feel it. In our mood, in our thoughts, in the subtle tension beneath our conversations, even if we pretend not to. When someone whose roots are tied to ours is in pain, ignoring that pain does not protect us. It simply sends the pain deeper into the shared soil between us. Psychologists call this avoidant empathy, the instinct to turn away from another person's suffering, not because we lack compassion, but because their pain mirrors something unresolved within ourselves. Their sadness touches our sadness. Their fear echoes our forgotten fear. Their loneliness stirs the loneliness we buried years ago. and the mind avoids what hurts. But avoidance has a cost that grows silently. Avoidance dries the emotional soil in which trust grows. Avoidance turns small wounds into deep fractures. Avoidance slowly makes a relationship brittle, and brittle things break. Most relationships do not end in a single dramatic moment. They end slowly, quietly, through a series of tiny avoidances. They end when one person says, "I'm tired," and the other doesn't ask why. They end when one person reaches out and the other pulls away, not physically but emotionally. They end when someone whispers, "I'm hurting," and instead of listening, we change the subject. We tell ourselves, "I need to protect my peace," and sometimes that is true. No one can carry the world on their shoulders. We all have limits. We all need boundaries. But there is a difference between a healthy boundary and an emotional wall. A boundary says, "I care about you, and I also need to take care of myself." A wall says, "Your pain is not my concern." And when our first reflex is to shut down, to withdraw, to avoid, we are no longer protecting peace. We are protecting avoidance. In psychology, avoidance may feel safe in the short term, but it always carries a quiet consequence. The more we avoid, the more anxious we become. The more we disconnect, the more fragile our relationships grow. Pain that is shared often becomes lighter. Pain that is ignored almost always becomes heavier. Think of the two pines. One was struggling, shaking, afraid of falling. It did the vulnerable thing. It reached out. It admitted, "My roots are not holding me anymore." This is what it means in human terms to say, "I can't do this alone. I am not as strong as I look. I need you." But the other pine, the one that believed itself strong, could not tolerate that vulnerability. Maybe it was afraid of being pulled down. Maybe it had never learned how to hold someone else's weight without losing its own balance. So it responded with hardness. "Your problem is not my problem." Many of us, if we are honest, have said some version of that line in our own relationships. Sometimes out loud, sometimes silently, just in the way we pulled back. What the pine did not understand is what many of us also fail to see. Its roots were already intertwined with the other. Their lives were already tied together. In human terms, this means that in close relationships, family, partnership, deep friendship, our emotional roots naturally grow into one another's inner worlds. We share stories, we share laughter, we share fears, even when they are unspoken. We share hopes and disappointments. Over time, our nervous systems learn each other. Our bodies remember the tone of each other's voice, the meaning behind each pause. Little by little, we stop being completely separate beings moving in parallel, and we start existing in a shared emotional field. So when one person in that field begins to collapse, the other may not notice the signs consciously, but the system feels it. There is a tension, there is a shift, there is a quiet imbalance. And if that imbalance is ignored, if the struggle is left unheld, both lives are affected. This is why not wanting to be involved in someone's pain is often an illusion. We are already involved, whether we accept it or not. The pine believed that pushing the other away would free it from responsibility. But in reality, it ensured that the fall of the weaker one would pull it down as well. This is how many relationships fall apart. Not because one person collapses, but because when they do collapse, the other refuses to bend. Supporting someone does not mean carrying them forever. It does not mean becoming their savior, their therapist, or their only source of strength. Support can be much simpler. It can be, "I see you. I hear that you're struggling. I may not have the answers, but I'm here with you." Sometimes support is a conversation. Sometimes it is silence shared without judgment. Sometimes it is just the willingness to let someone lean on us for a short season in their life. Many people think they lack empathy, but often what they really lack is emotional safety. They have never been taught how to stay present with pain, their own or someone else's. Maybe when they were vulnerable, no one stayed. Maybe they were told to toughen up. Maybe their feelings were minimized, mocked, or punished. So now, when they see someone else in pain, their body panics. Their mind says, "This is dangerous. This will overwhelm you. Run." That panic is not cruelty. It is a nervous system trying to protect itself using old strategies that once kept it alive. But those same strategies that protect us in the past can quietly destroy our connections in the present. When we always choose distance over presence, comfort over courage, avoidance over empathy, we slowly erode the very relationships that could have helped us heal. In many relationships, the breaking point was not a loud argument or a dramatic betrayal. It was the night someone cried silently in the next room, and no one knocked on the door. It was the day someone said, "I'm tired of everything," and the other replied, "You'll be fine," and then changed the topic. It was the moment one person finally opened up and said, "I'm not okay." And the response was, "Everyone has problems. Just deal with it." These moments pass quickly. They rarely look like turning points. But inside the heart, something shifts. Trust loosens, roots withdraw. The ground between two people starts to dry and crack. And eventually, like the broken telegraph wires, communication fails. Messages stop being sent, or they are sent but never truly received. In the story of the two pines, the collapse happened suddenly, but the cause began long before the fall. It began when one tree reached out and the other refused to bend. Human relationships work the same way. We often imagine strength as standing tall, unyielding, unshakable. But real strength, the kind that sustains connection, is the ability to bend without breaking. A rigid heart shatters easily. A flexible heart can weather storms. The pine that refused to bend believed it was protecting itself. It thought distancing itself would keep it safe, that if it didn't get involved, it wouldn't be affected. But the truth waiting underground was very different. Their roots were already intertwined. And this is the deepest truth about real relationships. We are already connected long before we admit it. What hurts you echoes in me. What weakens me shakes you too. Our emotional worlds bleed into each other in ways we cannot always see, but can always feel. When someone we love is hurting, even if we try to ignore it, the imbalance enters the space between us. It shows up in our tone, our distance, our arguments, our silence. We feel it in the atmosphere of the relationship, like pressure in the air before a storm. This is why "I don't want to get involved" is rarely the truth. We are already involved. Our roots have been growing into one another since the first day we chose connection. Supporting someone does not mean sacrificing ourselves or carrying their entire weight. It simply means, "I will not let you fall alone." And sometimes, that small moment of presence, that tiny pause of empathy, is enough to keep a relationship alive. But when we withhold that presence, when we reject someone in their most fragile moment, something breaks inside them. And something breaks inside us, too, even if we pretend otherwise. The tree that refused to help was not spared. Its life was tied to the other. Its fate was held in the roots beneath the soil. And so is ours. We do not get to avoid the emotional consequences of the people we love. Their pain becomes our pain, one way or another, through conflict, through distance, through the quiet collapse of what once felt strong. And yet, this truth is not only a warning, it is also a beautiful invitation. If our roots are intertwined, then our healing is intertwined too. Our growth, our resilience, our strength. When we hold someone in their moment of weakness, we strengthen the ground beneath both of us. We deepen the soil where trust grows. We reinforce the invisible threads that hold a relationship together. A relationship survives not because two people never fall, but because they never fall at the same time without reaching for each other. So the question is not, should I help? The question is, what happens to both of us if I don't? Imagine the moments in your life when someone asked for a little support. Not much, just a pause, a breath, a listening ear, and you were too overwhelmed or too afraid to offer it. Imagine the moments when you needed that same support and someone turned away. These small decisions shape the architecture of our relationships. They determine which roots thicken and which roots snap. In time, we learn that emotional connection is not a luxury. It is a form of survival. To choose empathy is to choose life for a relationship. To choose avoidance is to choose decay. And yet, there is still hope in this story. Even in the fall of the two pines, a truth shines through. When roots intertwine, they share more than pain. They share nourishment, strength, and the potential for growth. So perhaps the lesson is this: do not be afraid to lean when your roots loosen. Do not be afraid to hold when someone leans on you. Connection is not a burden. It is the way we survive storms. And before we pull away, before we harden our voice, before we say, "I can't handle this," or "this isn't my problem," we might pause long enough to wonder, what if our roots have been intertwined all along?